pillow. Hard and that shape. Cloths. 1, 2, 3, and bobbins. Cloth is secured on the pillow by very fine pins, long and fine. Pattern. We start with a dotted pattern on paper and prick it out onto thick card. The card is then secured in the middle of the pillow. The thread is very fine. We use 120. Please don't try and use 180 to begin with. 180 thread is a totally different technique. You will need some scissors with a little gap in between that don't cut very well to put your bobbins together. Bobbins are wound with a thread and the bobbins are plain and very light. They do not have beads on them. So to put a pair of bobbins together, in, around and through, and your bobbins are then attached. To begin, put a pin in the top where you're going to start, and you will then need to wind back your bobbins. So you find the knot and just wind 2 or 3 winds back so that the knot is not in your bobbin. If you're left-handed, it doesn't matter if you go the other way, so long as you haven't got a knot in your bobbin where you're working. You will also need a coarse thread. I usually use a different pair of bobbins so that I know which the coarse thread is, and this is a much thicker thread, and that also has to be put together and wound back. Right. To start, you have 6 pairs of bobbins with a knot on one bobbin. Place them round the pin so that the knot is on the inside, and you place 4 without knots one side and 2 without knots the other side. So you have 2 without knots there, 4 without knots there, and 6 knotted bobbins in the middle. Your coarse thread comes up under the knotted bobbins and sits at the end over the top there. I usually twist each bobbin twice before I start, and then the pair of bobbins that you have 2 at the side, you work along through the knotted bobbins. So 1 to the right, 2 to the left, 1 to the right, 1 to the right, 2 to the left, 1 to the right, 1 to the right, 2 to the left, 1 to the right. And now you've worked through the knotted bobbins. The bobbins that you've just taken through, you twist 3 times. You lift the knotted bobbins and you put a pin in under the unknotted pair, so that the unknotted pair is behind the bobbin. You then bring your coarse thread down so that it is either side of the knotted bobbins, and you then do the same again, an edge stitch with the two bobbins, two pairs of bobbins. So it's one to the right, two to the left, one to the right, and you twist each pair 3 times, and you very gently pull up the knot that against the pin. You now need to go back the other way. So this time you go 1 to the right, 2 to the left, 1 to the right. It helps if you gently tidy your bobbins, certainly the first stitch that you've done with your runners. So 1 to the right, 2 to the left, 1 to the right. So now you've worked through all the pairs, and now you're going to do another edge stitch. So you twist the pair that you've just worked, the runners that you've worked, 1, 2, 3, and once again you put a pin in under the pair so that your bobbins are in the middle, and I'm going to just shorten these and tidy them up. Before I do an edge stitch this side, I'm going to put another pair in because the pattern is getting wider, so you have to add pairs. So you take a pair under the runners you've just used, up through and then around the pin, and lay them inside the coarse pair. And now you do an edge stitch, 1, 2, 3, and you twist each pair 3 times and pull up so that it's nice and neat against the pin. And now we're going to go back again. Twist the runners 3 times and place the next pin in. Add another pair in exactly the same way as you've added the last pair. Under the bobbins, the runners that you've just used, around the pin, and lay them inside of the coarse thread. And once again, do an edge stitch. Twist each pair 3 times. And pull up. As you can see, it is growing relatively quickly, and you can begin to see what you have worked. We'll add 1 more pair of bobbins. There are 2 stitches in Honiton lace, a whole stitch which is what we've done, and half stitch, which we will do now. So another pair in. When you put a pair in, try and get the unknotted bobbin next to the coarse thread. We'll do another edge stitch. 1, 2, 3. Twist each bobbin 3 times. Because I'm going to do half stitch, I'm going to 1, 2, 3. When you go around a corner, sometimes the threads and the stitch will come away from the pin. If you tie a pair once, just very carefully and very lightly, it will keep the work up against the pin. For half stitch, you cross your runners once you've done your edge stitch. So 1 to the right, 2 to the left, 1 to the right, 2 to the left, 1 to the right, 2 to the left. When you come to the last stitch, which will have your coarse pair, you then do a whole stitch. So that's 1 to the right, 2 to the left, 1 to the right. But you can see that all your bobbins are crossed. So except the coarse pair. So you twist your runners 3 times, put a pin in under and do an edge stitch. 1, 3, 1, 2, 3. Right. Edge stitch again. Twist your runners once, 1 to the right, 2 to the left, 1 to the right, 2 to the left. And an edge stitch with your coarse pair and twist 3 times. Pin under, and you can see the difference in your whole stitch and your half stitch. We'll add one more pair because I want to. Because we are doing half stitch and all your other pairs are crossed, you leave your coarse pair and 1 thread and you cross one of the bobbins you've just put in and you cross the last pair that you worked through over the top. So now all your pairs are crossed. You then do another edge stitch, and a whole stitch, and you twist 3 times. Put your pin in. It's always worth remembering, tidy your bobbins after each row and just just call it fiddling with them, just to tidy them up and make sure that the lace is looking good. Edge stitch, pin in under. I'm now going to go back to hole stitch, and I'll do two rows of hole stitch, and then I will put a little twist in the middle. So this time we're doing hole stitch, so you don't need to cross your runners. So we're going back to 1 to the right, 2 to the left, 1 to the right. Edge stitch, twist 3 times, put a little twist in the middle. You go work out the middle of your bobbins like that. So edge stitch, and then work your way to the middle of the bobbins. When you get to the middle, twist your runners 3 times. 1, 2, 3. And then carry on with the rest of the bobbins. Pin. Tidy your bobbins, and you can now see that you have a little twist in the middle of your work. Edge stitch, tidy the bobbins once again, gently that, and do an edge stitch. There's a different twist in the middle. Occasionally you can do a half stitch in the middle. So, and this time you need 1, 2, you need an odd number of bobbins. So I will go back, put another pair of bobbins in the other side, and then do a half stitch in the middle. So edge stitch, and lay them inside the cross thread. Edge stitch. So now you have an odd number of bobbins. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and you will do your twist with that pair in the middle. So edge stitch. If your pairs move like that and you're a little bit worried, you can always gently tie that pair in like that, and then it is quite secure and it keeps the work against the pin. 1. So with the middle pair you're going to do a half stitch. So you twist the bobbin, your runners, and then you do a half stitch with the middle pair. 1, 2, and then you carry on with whole stitch through to the other side. For this one, you definitely have to keep tidying your bobbins. Edge stitch. We'll go back and do the same again. Twist your runners and 1 half stitch and carry on to the other side. And you can see that makes a nice little pattern in the middle of your work. Occasionally you have to use 1 pin twice. If you're coming round a corner, you have more pinholes one side than the other. So we'll go back to doing ordinary hole stitch and we'll use a pinned pole twice. We put a pin in, but we don't do an edge stitch. We go straight back with our course pair, with our runners, without doing an edge stitch. Get to the other side, twist 3 times, put a pin in. And do an edge stitch. And go back again. Twist your pair 3 times, your runners. You're now back to the edge where you didn't do an edge stitch last time. You take the last pin out that you used and you put the pin back in the same hole with the runners behind it. You very gently hold your coarse pair next to the pin and gently pull the runners the other side, and that gets rid of the little loop that you made with the bobbins when you didn't do an edge stitch. And now you do an edge stitch, twist 3 times and pull up, and that we'll do one more the other side. This time we'll use this pinhole twice. So we put a pin in and we come straight back with the same pair of runners. Tidy up our bobbins. We do an edge stitch this side and twist each pair 3 times, and we go back to the side again. Twist the pair 3 times. Take out the pin, the last pin you used. Hold on to that, the coarse thread that side, and gently pull that side. If you pull too fiercely on those, you'll pull the work right away from the pin. And sometimes it's better when you've done that to do just a little sewing, just a little tie with the pair as you come back again. So we'll do an edge stitch and twist 3 times, and we'll do our edge stitch, our first stitch with the coarse pair, and we will tie these just to keep that work up against the pin. As your work gets narrower, you will need to take pairs out. So we will take a pair out each side. Edge stitch. To take a pair out, you take the pair immediately inside the coarse pair and you just lay them back at the back of the work. When you're doing a leaf like this, it's better to, as you're going down, to take out a pair one side and then a pair the other side. If you take them all from one side, it doesn't really look right. As you can see, it's getting narrower down to the stem, so I will need to take out probably a pair in the next row and a pair over there and a pair there, but but we'll see how we go. Stitch. And we'll take another pair out, so the pair immediately inside the coarse thread, just gently lay them back. Take another pair out, pair inside the coarse pair. And you can take out as many pairs as you think you need to. If you're working around a corner or a semicircle like that, if you have to add pairs, add them on the outside and tie them in each time, because then the work doesn't come away from the pins. If you have to take out pairs, take them on the shorter side, take them out on the shorter side, because then it doesn't become bunched up and the work stays nice and level and even. I'm going to use this pin twice to get it level for the top of the stem. Last pin you put in, gently hold that coarse thread and pull so that it's nice and even. So you now have completed your first leaf. If you press down the top 3 pins and then take every other pin out, so you can take it won't fall apart, it will stay nicely, and you can see exactly what you've done. What it is normal to do is to do 1 leaf in whole stitch, 1 leaf in half stitch, and 1 leaf in whole stitch with a twist in the middle. there are two ways of joining lace. Two bits together, you do a sewing, and there is a raised sewing and a flat sewing. A raised sewing is when you want the lace to work closely together. So if you're joining two pieces of lace, you will do a raised sewing. And a raised sewing is, if I get another pair of bobbins, for a raised sewing, you go in through the side of one of your pinholes. So sometimes it's easier to keep the pin in, because then your pinhole stays nice and neater. So you go in through the side of your pinhole, come up, put your thread underneath, hold your pair of bobbins and bring your needle pin up through so you have a loop. You put one pair of your bobbins through the loop, get your bobbins together and gently pull, and now that pair of bobbins is attached to that pinhole. For a flat sewing, you put your needle pin in the hole and come out at the end and do exactly the same thing. Thread under, take your needle pin through and put one of the bobbins through the loop and bring it, and that is now attached there. Don't worry if they don't happen first time. It takes a long time to get used to a sewing, and if they don't happen, walk away and come back again, because otherwise you'll just spoil your lace. You get frustrated with it, and it's much better to give it 5 minutes, go back again, and it'll happen. So now we come to sort out the bobbins that you have at the back here that you've got rid of. And if you're doing half stitch, you must tie them. If you're doing whole stitch, you don't have to. But if you give 2 little ties like that, and then cut them off with a sharp pair of scissors like that, and it won't run. It's very amenable, and it'll be fine. So we'll do the same with these. The other thing I would urge you not to do is to run before you can walk, except that, all right, leaves and some of the patterns are not very interesting, but it's better to work through them and get used to making Honiton lace rather than try and do a really complicated pattern and slip up and then you're not happy with the work. Right, to finish off, we'll go through one more row and then we take out a pair so that you're able to tie all your pairs to finish off. So we'll go through another row. And then we will take out the pair immediately in front of the coarse thread and lay them at the back. We'll then go through the bobbins again, do an edge stitch, take out your coarse pair and lay them at the back, and then gently tie the bobbins in pairs twice. So that's 1, 2, and lay them at the back between the pair that you took out last time. There we are, and then the pair that is either side of all these bobbins that you took out. So that's that one and that one. You pick them up, tie them once, and you have all the bobbins in the middle. So you cross these over, bunch them all up, and tie them off again. And that, and cut them off. That little bunch will then sit nicely at the end. If I'm going to be sewing in or working near a bunch of bobbins like this, I tend to cut them off a little bit longer, because sometimes if you're sewing in, it's easy to unpick what you've done, and that's really annoying. And then you just cut off your coarse pair, and then that, once you've cut it off short, will sit nicely there, and nothing will come apart. And that's your first leaf in Honiton lace. So I would do that one all in hole stitch, take out my pairs and go down to there and finish. That one in half stitch, sew in there, bunch all the bobbins together, tie them like we've just done, thread them, spread them out again to there, and then carry on up through there with a little twist in the middle, and then finish there as we have done there. First lesson over.